metropolitan areas just don't have the availability to put a big area, a well-lit, paved area for truck drivers to park and to be safe at so that they can deliver first thing in the morning. They sometimes have to park far away, and God forbid they have to park on the side of the road. You know, I think law enforcement organizations across the country are impacted by this issue firsthand. And I'm telling you, they're starting to feel it, because what it's doing, it's not only putting the truck driver in jeopardy, it's putting every single person out there on the road in kind of a difficult situation, because it doesn't make it safe if you have to park on off-ramps, on-ramps, if you have to park on the side of the road or wherever you are. I tell you what, it's something that we've all been talking about, and yes, we continue to talk about it. We continue to send out letters. I tell you, we got a letter from Steve Buttigieg and telling us that there's a commitment on the issue. I'm telling you, we've sent out infrastructure bill after. How do we get money to these truck parking spaces? There is no reason to build a bridge if you're not going to be able to run over it, if you're not going to be able to get there, and you're not going to be able to have the truck drivers to do it. We've got to find a way to get truck parking in for these people. It is one of the number one issues on truck drivers' minds today. Atri has already sent out the reports on what the truck drivers believe to be the biggest issue out there on the road today. And it is not just money, and it's not home time, and it's not safety. It's not any of these things. It's I don't have a place to park. It's difficult for everybody out there when that happens. And I'll tell you what, it's important that we take a look at it and we do something about it. We're all saying, the reports all say the same thing. We get them time and time again. Hey, let's do something about it. Hey, I'm ready for some action. I'm ready for somebody to do something. I'm ready for somebody in Congress to step up and say, okay, enough's enough. Here's the money, and this is how we're going to spend it. I don't care if we get private enterprise, and I don't care how we do it, but we got to find a way. And there's no easy solution and no easy answer, but it's got to be done. And if we don't start now, when are we going to start? If we don't find the money now, when are we going to really get to this issue? We've got to find a way to step up to the plate and find a place to park for these truck drivers all over the country. I mean, it's getting to a point. Look, it's Friday. We got a lot going on. I'm going to tell you, I'm getting a little hyped up about the Cowboy game on Sunday. Got a lot of things happening here on the weekend, a lot of fun games, a lot of sports over the weekend. But mostly, we want to make sure that we understand that in this industry, we got to talk about safety here on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. We got to understand, we got to keep in mind the safety of what's going on. There's a lot of people going to be traveling to these college games. There's going to be a lot of people out there on the road. There's going to be a lot of people trying to get to some of these cool games across the country. And when they do, and when they enter into the roadways, it makes it a dangerous, more dangerous and difficult situation out there for everybody. And it is always up to us in the trucking industry to find a way and to figure out a way to move around safely and get the products and services delivered in a timely and efficient manner, and do it without anyone getting hurt. Unfortunately, it won't happen. Somebody will get hurt, but we hope and pray that we're going to make the necessary changes to do it. All right, I'll tell you what, we're going to jump away from this topic for a second. We're going to bounce out here, and then we're going to come back. We've got a fantastic panel out there. We're going to come back and have a quick conversation with some of the geniuses in the industry as it pertains to technology. We'll be back in just a second.
You're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. BCB Live covers freight. Here we are now at 21% of record freight being rejected. News down in Texas. We're going to talk a little bit about this. We had another $1.5 million seizure. If ever there's a time to do a pre or post trip, it's if you're doing something wrong. Weather, traffic.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to some traffic and weather with Buckle Up Bob. You can kind of see where the visibility can be compromised a little bit. Again, right where that rain is.
And most importantly, safety.
One of the things that we must do is make sure that safety is the number one thing that we focus on.
Going into an intersection yellow is not the way. That's to clear an intersection, not to enter an intersection.
Tune in weekdays from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. You can watch BCB Live through LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe today and follow BCB Live.
All right, and welcome back to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Drive Safe Dave here, running the man in the news desk all by myself today. I'm a little bit selfish. I got it all under control right here as Sir Rick is out there on assignment. But I'll tell you, we've got three fantastic panelists today to talk to you a little bit about. I mean, I'm not talking about just normal panelists. I'm talking about geniuses in the industry, especially when it comes to technology. I'm going to bring them in right now. Bryce, bring all our panelists in, please. There you go. All right, we got Carrie, Ed, and Chris. Carrie, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself first, who you are and who you're with.
Sure thing. Well, thanks so much for having me here. Drive safe, Dave. I'm sad to miss Sir Rick, but good to be here. I'm going to one of those college games this weekend. I'm going to Notre Dame, Stanford, so go Irish. And anyway, I am with Trucker Tools, and we are the leading free app for life on the road for drivers, focused especially on owner-operators and small carriers. We've been downloaded 2 million times and allow you to become a digital carrier, have all the tools you need to find, book, track freight, and find truck parking, actually, just like you were talking about, without ever having to pick up the phone. We've also do a lot of work on the brokerage side, helping them improve and automate load tracking and freight matching and digital booking.
All right, Ed, you're up next. Ed, you're muted. Sorry.
Think I'd have this down in 2022 by now.
That happens in every meeting. And you know what? In our meetings around here, you get picked on. I'm just letting you know, we won't do it on this show, but if you're here in this office and you're muted to try to talk, you get picked on. But we won't do it here today, but I give you fair warning for next time. But go ahead and introduce yourself, Ed.
Yeah, sorry, Dave. I got to be that guy. Started my career off at Echo, moved on to Redwood, and then lastly, leading sales efforts at Transfix. And very similarly to what Carrie described, Trucker Tools, we are trying to digitize the transaction. Slightly different market. We really aim to digitize the transaction with the mid-market trucking companies and connect those folks to the mid-market brokers. That could mean through their user interface, through integrations, giving the brokers the right tools to reach out to the carriers, but really focusing on mid-market to mid-market transactions.
Awesome. All right, and Chris, not the least for last, but you're up next.
Man, Dave, I got to say, I felt like I was on a real TV show there, just watching the intro come in. You guys have come a long way. So, no, awesome to see that. I'm Chris Arredondo, co-founder and VP of pretty much everything customer related here at Cargo Chief. I started my career early on at the boot camp of freight, I guess you could call it, at C.H. Robinson. Booked a ton of freight, moved on to XPO. Found a niche there on the sales side, went to coverage, ops manager, ran a brokerage, did it all, decided to come and build out some freight tech. So here at Cargo Chief, we really about enhancing and enriching that procurement process through automation, layered digital freight matching, from everything from capacity sourcing just to solve the sporadicness and the chaotic nature of the business and the industry. And then just to give you a better price to quote accurately and win more business. So that's pretty much it.
You know, I'll tell you, y'all are all in a niche in the industry that relies heavily on data. I mean, as you do this, I mean, I can tell you back in the day, data was something that you got way after the fact. It was so ex post facto. It came in after everybody turned in their logs and after everybody turned in their receipts and after everybody turned in their paperwork. It was weeks, if not months, to procure any real data to make decisions on. And now, obviously, as we talk about it, data has become, there's so much of it. It is dumped on us daily. How is it affected? How is it that you, in your industry, how are you impacted by data now like it's never been before? Carrie, you want to tell us?
Absolutely. We rely on data for everything we do at Trucker Tools. So both on the carrier and the driver side, we're in the business of making you a more efficient operator automating those manual tasks that we have a lot of information on and are able to kind of set and forget, so you can be focused on things. If you're a driver on the road, driving safely, not thinking about, hey, where am I going to get my next load? Where am I going to park my truck? Or a broker, if you're in the office, not sending out those emails that you always know to send to these 5 carriers every Tuesday morning for a lane from Dallas to Atlanta. So what we're doing is just constantly collecting information on the activity on our platform, where drivers are heading, what lanes they're indicating interest in, and then using that to match on the other side of the marketplace with our brokerages, where we see they have, lanes, or sorry, they have loads that need to run, and match those lanes that we have in our carrier network, so that we can just create matches and create efficiency, where in the past that information would have been revealed slowly over time via phone calls, emails. Right now, we can just completely run that in the background using all of that data and free both sides of the marketplace up to focus on bigger problems, problem solving, and staying safe out there.
And as you talk about that, Ed, why don't you speak to how it's affecting you? Because obviously you have knowledge in the industry, come into the industry. How are you seeing a huge change in what you do every day with data?
Yeah, well, I think the piece that you touched on about getting data after the fact, I think probably, like, just generically speaking, the biggest innovation in the last couple of years has been acquiring data via integrations. And it's something that most TMSs never had the ability to do, whether you're on the shipper, broker, or carrier side. It doesn't matter. Most of these folks have never done third-party integrations before. All of the integrations that they've done have really meant to facilitate the immediate needs of their customer, and not necessarily allow these third-party vendors to come in, and unless you're a Triumph Pay or in the factoring space or in the tracking space. But this new category of digital bookings and connectivity is going to be propelled exponentially by the quality of integrations that these TMSs are innovating and finally deciding to do. But with that, the byproduct is capturing a lot more data than we have ever had access to. So I think, just again, generally speaking, we're starting to see data in terms of what carriers are going where they're going to be ahead of time. We've talked about predictive capacity for a really long time in this industry, and typically that has been siloed to one organization. I think with the types of companies on this panel, we're starting to see transactions and where carriers will be a little bit further out in time, but also pricing data and a lot of other variables that I'm probably neglecting to mention. But I think the integration is probably key there.
Chris, and as we're talking, you obviously have a lengthy term in the industry. Well, I think a lot of this data, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of this data started to get dumping on us when the integration of the ELD came about, and seeing not only where the truck is at, where it's going to be, and all of this other stuff, that was all surrounded by the log, but it turned into something more, right? I mean, now we have firsthand knowledge of where the trucks are, what they're doing, and we can predict for the customers, right? I mean, how does that information, how did that one little piece that was all about the electronic log really make a genuine difference in the industry?
It's really just the speed, right? I think you think of a lot of tools out there, or just in the old days. I mean, tracking loads with an index card and moving it across, like, that takes a lot of time, right? And like, then right, and interpreting and yelling at someone across the room, like, hey, yeah, load's picked up, like, my index card is over here, come look at it. And like that it's the speed and the rapidness of like EDI and API that's allowed things to just be more streamlined. And I think when you were talking about data, like, everyone has data, and this EDI and API allowed for a lot more of it and a lot more consumption. But it's really like, is it actionable? Right. And then I think the really interesting thing is the evolution of interpretation of that data. Everybody has it, but it really depends on, tech companies like us, or just even somebody there in your own shop, to be able to interpret it and relay it to your team so that it can be useful to know, like, what trucks are coming up, what the price is going to be tomorrow or next week, and then even is there parking available, or like, where is my truck, right? So all this data together, it's really just interesting to see the evolution of interpretation, I'd say.
Yeah, I know. And as you talk about, I'll tell you, that's funny when you talked about index cards. I remember a load. By the way, I just want to let everybody, I'm older. The load board used to be a little thing in the truck stop where you pulled a piece of paper off of a board that was where the loads were. That's where the load board actually originated from, not from something you got online. So I just wanted y'all to know that's actually where that term first came from. But I'll tell you, as you talk, Carrie, have you found that as you dig deeper and as you offer up a service, isn't it funny how it opens up way more channels of what else you might need or what else the customer might need? I mean, like you were talking about these different things, that's not how it all started, right? They just keep starting to add on, right? The data just gets there and you're like, oh my goodness, I've got to do something else with it.
Yeah, I think your point about the ELDs is a very good one in that opened up kind of a whole new can of worms of opportunity, or Pandora's box of opportunity for us to dig into. And it's been a big focus of ours at Trucker Tools. We were largely a mobile tracking provider, and over the last couple of years, I mean, ELDs have just completely changed the tracking game. So I think the way, we think about data is that, to Ed's point, we're only as strong as kind of the quality that we're getting via integration with our customers, but also that whenever we are developing a new product based on the data we have, we think through, how is a customer actually going to be using this in action? We talk to brokerages all day long. We talk to our carrier customers. Is this going to be something that they're going to be able to make a decision on, and an intelligent decision on, or is it just overwhelming them with information that actually might be presenting more noise than anything that they can use in kind of a real world context?
You find that as you're doing this, and I'll just stick to this with you, Ed. Let me ask you, when you face this, how are we going to go forward in this? Looking at all of this, and I know where we are now, how are we going to breed? We're going to get even more and more data dumped in here. How are we going to facilitate this?
We get to make fun of Ed now.
I know.
Ed, I'm fixing to write you a ticket. I'm fixing to get you. You're doing that to me. And, we're all just leaning forward and
I wish I could even say it was a joke and that I'm just messing with you, but it's not. I think it probably depends on what vertical we're talking about. There's a lot of different data coming across all of these different verticals, and some of it is very legacy. We're talking about ELD and tracking data and the consumption and how that data is actionable. And I think one of the most obvious examples is nobody wants to look at a map and see where their 500 shipments are, but they do want to know when those 3 are going to be late. And we're going to take data and turn it into something that is actionable and that you could be proactive and start alerting your customers that affect the supply chain downstream. So I think frankly, we'll probably see, with the amount of money that has come into the space over the last 5 to 7 years, I think we'll probably see some folks that have not really been able to figure out how to make that data actionable and have not been able to provide real value to their customers. And I think in the next couple of years, we'll probably separate those folks who are truly value add versus the folks that haven't quite been able to figure that out yet. So I know it's a little bit more on the company level, but I think the biggest advancement that I see in the industry is really around the folks that have figured out how to add value and kind of weeding out some of the bad actors.
I appreciate that. And here's where BCB Live steps into all of this information that y'all are throwing at it. And I really wanted to get to this. I've been saving this. How are we going to make sure then in all of this data, in all of these implementations, how are we going to ensure that no matter what we're doing here, we're finding ways to do it safer for the guys out there on the road? I mean, I know that it's a difficult challenge, because what do you do to make it different for the truck driver? What do you do to make it different for what the shipper believes and sees? And I think rarely does safety get put on the forefront in the technology space, because we're working in a different type of mentality. But let me jump there. Chris, how do you see how safety can play a major, if not the most important role in these new advancements?
I think one, together is how we have to do it. I don't think there's just one company that is going to do it all. I think together in this industry, like as different products come in and companies compete and whatnot, like we all have kind of our differences, and together is how we're going to overcome the next pandemic, the next hurricane, the next whatever else the sun throws at us. And I think, like Carrie mentioned earlier, something about an app that's downloaded the most, right? Like that's pretty incredible, and being able to reach drivers and at the right there that are actually in the trucks with maybe freight that they actually want, right? Like it's not just going to be a spot load that someone's just being really opportunistic for just to take it just because it's going to pay them 10 grand or whatever. But I think it's like giving them business that they want, at the same time serving the shipper and getting the freight moved, and at the end of the day getting the product on the shelf in a safe manner, where it could be a lane that the carrier that carrier runs that lane as a backhaul just to get back home, right? Like that. I think that match in itself is gonna make it a much better experience for just everybody together, right? And if you can find different mediums and different channels to reach the right fit at the right price with the right load, the right match, that's, I think, how you can think about safety being at the forefront of the game.
Yeah, I like that, because I think you're right. It's going to help alleviate stress. It's going to help alleviate, the more stress, the more fatigue, the more, and the more fatigue, the more dangers out there. Yeah, Ed, what you got? You're raising your hand. I'm hoping your mic's working.
Yeah, I did us all the favor this time. I think the one piece that is really scary when it comes to safety is the pure liability around making recommendations. We're not dealing with fender benders. Like these are fatalities. These are major accidents. So if you're in the compliance game, if you're trying to figure out how to leverage data to reduce accidents or increase safety, like there's a lot of risk and a lot of liability for any company to step in to that world. So broadly speaking, I think one of the things that we really have to do as an organization or an industry is to figure out how to let these organizations leverage the data without this tremendous amount of risk. Like there are companies that have very deep pockets that are able to fund some of this. Like a perfect example is Tesla. Great, we want to enable the autonomous vehicle to drive by itself, and if there is an accident, chances are they could write a check and make it go away. These startups that have the ability to truly leverage data in an impactful way to drive meaningful change in the industry do not have those deep pockets. So somewhere there has to be a bridge that we're able to build to enable these folks rather than inhibit them and have this kind of cloud of fear lingering over their heads.
I think the fear of any of the liability and with more and more of the nuclear verdict and the tort law without reform is going to frighten a lot of people in this regard. However, I think at some point, if we want to make a change in this industry, we're going to have to put our pants on, our big boy pants on, and go after it and tackle this, because we're talking about people's lives. And at some point, we've got to figure out what we can do. Carrie, I haven't had a chance to throw the safety question your way. How do you see it that we as a group can figure out using this important data to save lives?
Yeah, I think it comes back to automation of tasks that cause distraction on the road. I think the general narrative around smartphones and tech in the world is that it's created this kind of generation of completely, totally, always distracted people. And what I'm hoping and where I could see this going in our space is, as opposed to being distracted by that technology, it's actually a tool you have to set kind of in the background to do those tasks that would otherwise be distracting you, whether that's picking up a phone call and instead you're able to interact over a digital platform like any of, Cargo Chief, Neutral, Trucker Tools, whatever it is, or, using an ELD to track again instead of, a track and trace call, having a couple of loads sent to you that would be good matches that you could book, as opposed to, scrolling through your phone and looking for a load while you're stressed out on the road trying to find a backhaul. So it's really using tech not as a tool to overwhelm you with more information about what's happening where and distracting, but using it as a tool to take care of the 20-30% of activities that are pretty manual and rote, so that you can use your brain power and focus on being alert, understanding where others are around you, and driving safe activity that way.
When and you talk about that, and I like how you mentioned the other groups. How can you guys, as competitors, in some sense, recreate alliances to better the industry? And in what ways can you do that? In what ways have you done that? I'm just curious.
I think Ed hit it on the head earlier around integration. The more integrated we're all with each other, the more we're going to be able to reach the entire spectrum of carriers, brokers, shippers out there. Everyone's got a different platform they're using for whatever reason. They have, it really fits their needs. And the more that we can integrate and pass data back and forth in a really clean, simple way, the better decisions we're all going to be able to make.
There's no real, Ed, as we go and as we move forward, there's no real scary idea about us sharing the data, is there?
And depends on your business, probably. So I'm a huge fan of transparency and sharing the data that we're able to collect. I know that not all people share that same mentality, and when we talk to brokerage clients, there's a lot of folks. Just a very constrained example is a lot of brokerages don't want to share their data because it's intellectual property. It's the data that has become the foundation of their business, and they can't share carriers, they can't share pricing, they don't want their competition to know that. So I think that there is this kind of traditional legacy mindset that we don't want to share because we don't want to enable our competitors. And then there's another group of folks out there that know that data is going to drive innovation and move this industry forward at a much quicker pace. So we're certainly in that camp of being able to share data, buy data, sell data, create a transparent platform around pricing or whatever it may be. But I think the biggest variable there will be the mindset of the vertical and the companies that we're dealing with.
And as we go to that, and Chris, I just one last question, and as we talk about it, and we're talking about it, I don't see anything genuinely wrong with having transparency to know where my trucks are, know when they're going to be late, know how they're. I feel like a shipper has a better opportunity to align how it's going to unload or load if it knows when the trucks are going to get there in real time, not in hey, I'm supposed to be there at 8:30, but I'll be there at 9:15 and I think that also offers up to a safer environment. But when are we going to go directly to the shippers and the receivers and put them in the mix all the time in that shareable data space?
I would say it's kind of bouncing off of what Ed said. That there is some hesitation, and I think like the mindset of that company and organization. And I've seen over the last, I don't know, we've been up for, I don't know, call it 5 years or so, but like in the last, I think the pandemic really put that extra push and motivation for a lot of brokerage companies to share that data, to where it's like, if we're not doing this together, like, and they can see that the benefit outweighs the risk, then they're a lot more likely to share that information. And like I said earlier in the conversation, like the evolution of interpretation, I think now it'll start to spill off into, I mean, more carriers probably adopting like this technology, book it now, digital freight matching stuff, even the applications to automate some of their tasks, then into the shippers. Like, I mean, let's face it, a lot of shippers don't have a TMS. They've got, hey, can you move this load for me? Great. Here, or email, or what, it's antiquated technology that, I mean, if you call it technology, Outlook, I guess, but that's the way that the loads are being channeled through. And I think like it's really a mindset shift. Hopefully we don't have to go through another pandemic to do this. Like it took tracking, and Carrie could probably speak more to this. Like when I started my career, it took, an arm and a leg to get a driver to accept on their phone, like, yeah, I'll be here. But, it took 10 years in a pandemic to get drivers to actually accept that tracking technology. Today, it's like, required, right? And carriers, drivers don't really have issues doing it. And it's like, I think when they see that the benefit outweighs the risk, that will start to shift the industry together. And again, all of us doing this together, speaking the same message, what will help that move along.
You know, we are out of time. I just want to thank each of y'all for coming on. I know it's a quick discussion, but I think it's a much needed one. I think it's one that we're going to have to continue to talk about. If we have an opportunity, I hope to bring you guys back in at another time and continue to talk about this stuff. I do appreciate each of you coming out. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go through each one of you really quick, state who you are again, and how to reach out to you to get a hold of your platform. Carrie, you want to lead the way? Ladies first.
Sure. Appreciate that. Sure thing. I'm Carrie Jablonski with Trucker Tools, and you can find me on LinkedIn or email me kjablonski@truckertools.com.
Thank you. Ed.
Yeah, Ed Stockman, co-founder, CEO of Neutral. Feel free to find me on LinkedIn or sales@neutral.com.
All right. And go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Chris Arredondo, co-founder, VP here at The Chief. LinkedIn's a pretty good way, or cargochief.com, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks, everybody, again. And thanks for joining us on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. All right, man. What a great panel, great interview. I enjoy all of them. I wish I could talk to them for hours, but we just don't have the time, because when we come back in just a second, I've got Double Check Dale coming in with a safety topic and a few cool videos. Be right back. All right, and we are back here on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Drive Safe Dave here. Now tagged along with Double Check Dale, who's coming in with not only the safety vest, but what topic are we discussing today, sir?
You know, we've been talking about dangers of following too close all week, and today we're going to talk about the tailgated driver, the driver that's being tailgated. You know, a lot of times,
the victim.
There you go.
The victim in this circumstance.
You know, they may feel intimidated. Once they start feeling intimidated, they get stressed out a little bit, and they aren't really paying attention to what they should be, the task at hand of driving. And so that often leads to other things such as accidents, because they're really not paying attention, because the person behind them is way too close. And so just don't tailgate them. It just puts a lot of stress on everybody.
Yeah, so and as we talk about it, and I look, first of all, if you're tailgating somebody, you're being an aggressive driver, and nobody likes anyone that's aggressive, right? You don't like them when they're behind the news desk, right? When they're being too aggressive. Don't like them when they're in the hallway. Don't like them when they're anywhere at the restaurant,
grocery store.
Grocery store. It doesn't really matter. You don't like the guy yelling at the lady about something, right? Being aggressive about it. It doesn't come off well. Well, it doesn't come off well in the vehicle. It doesn't come off well on the road. And in fact, it actually opens up the opportunity for an accident, not only for yourself if you're the aggressor, but it also opens up an opportunity for a crash on the victim.
Yeah, I mean, because if you're following too close, it's the person ahead of you that's probably going to end up in the crash first, because they're not paying attention, they're watching something else.
And then you're right behind them.
And you're too close, you're going to run into them, and it's just not a good situation. Just back out of it. You know, find, if you're getting stressed or in too big a hurry, talk to somebody, call somebody, pull over, take a break. Don't tailgate. Don't stress that person out in front of you.
Right. You know, we will see. You know, and I'll tell you, everybody has a mindset. Everybody thinks, and I'm going to ask this to you, Dale. Everybody thinks that tailgating is if you're right on their bumper.
No.
Right? Isn't that what most people think?
That's what most people may think.
But that's not what it means,
But
is
that's
it?
not what it means at all.
No, what does it mean? What does tailgating really mean?
It means you're following too close. It means you are too close to stop if that vehicle in front of you comes to a sudden halt. It means that you don't have the space that you need to come to a controlled stop if they stop in front of you.
And that really in a car is 2 seconds, and in a truck it's more than that.
Oh yeah, in a truck at 60 miles an hour, it's at least 5 seconds, probably closer to 6 or 7.
Yeah, and I know that seems like a long distance away, but if you can't stop in the space in front of you and you can't do it, and I'm just going to remind everybody, if they hit something in front of you and come to a sudden stop, you are not going to be able to stop. And that doesn't matter if they're on the road or if they come into a contact with another vehicle or an obstruction in the road. I'm telling you right now, you won't be able to stop in time. Do we have any videos? Let's see one of the videos.
Let's see.
Or 2.
Or 3. Oh, what are we talking about? Tailgating, following too close.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, as you watch it, it does look like it opens up a little bit,
yep.
Right? It does look like the distance is widening right here, right? As yep. and that's what we're talking about. Right here, you're way too close,
yep.
And then over a short period of time, that car moves out. You want to create a much bigger space. You
yep.
want to create a much better space, a much more. I'm telling you, it'll save your life and the person in the rear.
Absolutely, it will definitely save your life if you got that space and they have to stop suddenly.
All right, next video. Now, what's wrong with this video?
Following too close.
But I've been doing this for years. What makes you think I'm following too close?
Well, one, the technology tells us that, and two, you've been doing it for years. It doesn't mean you've been doing it right for years. It just means you've been doing it for years. And so there's many ways of figuring it out. Use that old count method. Count it out loud. When that vehicle goes past that light pole, start counting 1001, and I guarantee in this one we're not going to get there.
1001. Yeah, you're only a second away, if a second away. Trust me, you don't have enough room to stop. Next video. All right. Now, I'm a big truck following a big truck. We got us a convoy. How is this not okay?
Yeah. Again, if that big truck has to come to a sudden stop, you're too close. You're going to rear end them. You're not owning the space between you and the vehicle ahead of us, and it is so important to own that space.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you right now, as we continue to talk about it and discuss it, you can't really see. You're too close. You lose visibility of what's up front when you're this close.
Yeah, the big picture goes away. Now all of a sudden you've just got that little snapshot, and that's not good.
That's not good. All right, let's go.
This one takes a little while to develop. Maybe we have or haven't, but we're going down a nice 3-lane interstate right here, just minding our own business, and then all of a sudden, here comes a car going the wrong way on it.
That, sir, is a 911 call.
And that's what the driver did.
That is a 911 call immediately, and I'll tell you, this is a good maneuver by the driver, identifying, understanding, and knowing that there is a huge danger on the road. You can even see the vehicle up in front hit the brake when they recognize that there was a danger. I'm telling you, this right here is scary, is it not?
Oh, very scary, because, as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, well, what's going on here? Because you can't really tell until it gets really close that car is not in the other side.
I saw it right before the truck moved over. I was like, oh, my goodness.
Yeah, scary. Like I said, and 911
I was looking for a car
response.
coming up behind us to speed or go fast, and then I noticed, I was like, wait a minute, that didn't look right.
That car's way too far over on our side. So, yeah, it's a scary thing. But like I said, you encounter something like that, the driver did a great job, slowed down, started getting over to the shoulder, called 911.
Get on it right away. Make sure you identify the mile marker right away, direction of travel, how fast, and if you can, identify the type of vehicle, whatever. Do whatever you can to give the best information to the law enforcement as quickly as possible, because they will get out there and stop that, because that is a horrible and dangerous situation to be in and to know of and to be able to do something about. Right?
Accident looking for a place to happen.
No, that's even worse than that. That is a fatality on the move.
But there you go, fatality, and then the streak in Texas would continue.
I'll tell you what. All right, thanks everybody. Hey, thanks for joining us here on BCB Live and listening to our panel and also talking a little bit about safety. We will see everybody on Monday at noon and talk a little bit more, right? Always bringing the needed info, right?
There you go. We will be talking safety and everything that affects the transportation industry. And you have been watching BCB Live, the
safest station in the nation.
Peace out.